I realized that sometimes it's the person of color's fault that they end up dealing with microaggressions and racism in interracial relationships from their partner and sometimes their family. Guys, subscribe to my channel and let's have a little chat.
I'm going to say this and I'm not going to elaborate. I just feel like people should be a little bit afraid of you.
This just happened, all right? So I was at a event with mixed company, and there was another Black American woman there who is partnered, married to an Italian man. This music in the background came on, and it was like a long, like kind of drum intro, right? Percussions intro to the song. And she said out loud in front of all of these white people, "What is this jungle music we're listening to?" We are the only two Black people in there, and we both have white Italian partners, okay? And I was like, why would you say that around all these white people? And she said what she said, they heard her. I said what I said, they heard me as well. And they all stopped kind of like, ooh, right? And I was just like, why would you say that, again, around all these white people? And she was like, well, it's this jungle music. My husband's always listening to this jungle music. And I was like, you keep saying it. And I was just like, jungle music is not a genre of music. It's a racist way of describing, sometimes African music, blah, blah, blah. And so then she started gaslighting me about what she said. And I was just like, you've been around them too long. And what I have noticed is a lot of people will say that their partners say certain things, they do certain things that are a little bit on borderline. The thing is that anti-Blackness is global, right? And so when you are with a non-Black partner, a lot of times, even if they are also within the POC spectrum, they still have anti-Blackness. We as Black people have been socialized into anti-Blackness. And a lot of people are not decolonized to understand that. People of color, let alone white people. So when you are partnered with a white person as a person of color who understands colonial mindsets, all of these things, there are certain things that you should not say around white folks. And that includes your partner. I hate to break it to you, but it's true. It includes your white partner. And if you are openly saying things like jungle music or, things that you would normally maybe say, but save it for when you are like not in mixed company, and you're saying those things in front of your partner, it almost gives them the idea and an open door to make stereotypes and normal kind of microaggressions that we experience on a regular basis, okay, and normalize around him. And I'm sorry, that is not how I would navigate being in an interracial relationship. And I know some people want to think, well, I want to be comfortable. I want to be able to talk to this person and they know that there's a limit and blah, blah, blah. Girl, all you are doing in those instances is reinforcing these ideologies that we have been socialized in anti-Blackness. And when you have your children, all of that stuff is start to seep inside of them as well. So the thing was though, when she said what she said, and I said what I said, everybody was like, "Well, why is that even racist? It is a genre of music." And I was just like, "Who gets a Grammy for jungle music? Who? There's no such Grammy that existed." And everybody in that room envisioned something when she said that. And even though these are Italian people far away from America and far away from some of the racist ideologies that we've grown up with, not just being anti-Black, but anti-African and all of those, that same image still popped up in their heads. That same racist type of idea popped up in their head from her saying that. And it's global, it's universal. Interesting thing was everybody then tried to prove it was a genre of music. And so Google came up. I was like, that's fine. It was electronic music, which was considered jungle music. I was like, but that's not what anyone envisioned, right? And you had to Google that to try and come up with a way to talk it out, talk the idea you had in your head out of yourself, right? And it's like, it wasn't a racist idea because it exists in this way. And I'm like, but the way things exist, how we use the words and how we've changed the meaning to create anti-Blackness is universal. And the defense of that is also universal. And so she tried to say, I don't see what's wrong with it. You know, I talk like this all the time around him. And I was just like, that's what I'm talking about. And when you decide to venture into an interracial relationship and specifically with white people, there has to be some limitations into what you allow yourself to say, express around them, and for them to do. There just has to be. That is the only way that you are not going to live with microaggressions in your house. I have a lot of people who are in interracial relationships, and they take their white partners to spaces that should be Black safe spaces. And I completely disagree with doing that. If your partner was truly aware, they would understand that there are spaces that, because of the history of our worlds, because of the history that we deal with, they shouldn't feel comfortable in, not because they feel threatened, but because they shouldn't walk into spaces where they know Black people want to be free. And their presence, for a lot of them, just makes them uncomfortable to do that, or makes them feel watched and makes them feel annoyed that they have to even think about anything associated with having a white person in spaces that are supposed to be safe for Black people to be free. And I know if you, and this doesn't mean that your partner's a bad person for showing up, but it does mean everyone's inconsiderate, including you, in respect to that space and understanding the culture. And I guess I feel like that is like that protective thing of culture that Black people keep opening up and sharing. I mean, that's all ultimately, even the whole Kendrick Lamar, Drake beef is because Drake is not of the culture. He has Blackness in him, right, that he can claim, but he is not of the culture that created hip hop and rap and battling and all of that stuff. He's just not of the culture. And even though people welcomed him into the culture, not being of the culture eventually proves something about that person. And when you forget that these cultural things are important just because of your relationship, then you start to forget how important that is, not just for you, but the collective of Black spaces, of Black people, and having our culture be something that is important. And some of these things, are unfortunate just because culture is meant to be shared. However, we can't share it with everybody. And sometimes we don't need to always say, I have a partner, so they have to show up every place you are. And I do feel like gatekeeping sometimes is important in protecting yourself and protecting the culture, and understanding how globally these socialized things that are in us that make us think a certain way and say certain things need to change. And there is not very many people that are decolonizing themselves enough where you can say certain things and it not have ramifications in other ways. Because when people tell me like their partner was like said the N word or called them an N word or whatever, I just understand they got too comfortable in what you allowed them to do before you got to that point. Because even if your partner never does anything racist, never has had a moment, there is so much socialization in us that we don't always see certain things. And a lot of times, like, especially here in Italy, and people choose to be racist, right? Like, United States, the history of racism, the it's inbred, it's embedded in the soil. We are like the United States was literally built on, an Indian graveyard with blood of slaves, fertilizing the earth. So here in Europe, however, they have the history of colonization, but they don't have it so much on their land, right? In their countries. The thing is, anti-blackness has been a huge export, right? And it's been this way for so long that so many socialized norms are built around it where everyone had a certain picture in their head, but then they also tried to defend the fact, like, even though when they found the definition of it, it did not align with the picture that they had in their head. They still tried to defend the fact that it's a type of music that exists. And I was just like, yeah, that may be true, but it's not the reason that you guys had that picture in your head. And you're not being honest about it. And that is something that I find fighting all the time within the culture, within Europe. Like, why do people feel the need to say certain things, behave certain ways around certain types of people? And they can't explain it. They can't explain why they will ask a black person who says they're American, where are you really from? But not that white person. That white person can be whatever they want to be, you know? So, and there are no, especially Americans, in the US, white people are not native to America. So why is this so acceptable to say when European Americans come to Europe and say they're American, they don't go, well, what's your real history? But they do that to us. And the idea that a lot of Black Americans actually feel some sort of way about it and feel some sort of shame in not knowing the history of their African roots. I I don't understand why we do, because we're American. And who should feel ashamed is this European who has no clue of the history of his ancestors that did this to someone he's literally staring in the face. Like, my ancestors were directly affected by yours, person, and should feel the shame. Like, those are the things that blow my mind because Black Americans don't realize how colonized our mindset is, that we should feel shame when this person whose ancestors basically are the reason we don't know where we came from exactly and lost our ethnicity and lost our culture and all these things. They should be shamed. That's the way I see it. But it's really quite interesting when how people navigate some of these interracial things and not think about the responsibility that you have in protecting the culture and honoring it, especially if you are in relationships with white European people. Um, Guys, subscribe to my channel. I look forward to your comments, and ciao, ciao for now.